Okay, so first of all, we want to present to you the first mobility of our Erasmus Plus program. And to start it off, we want to have a look at how the respective EU countries and the member states deal with the challenges of the current refugee crisis. Therefore, we will start with France.
Okay, so the beginning of migration in France started in World War One, when France appealed to foreign labor because of their language demography. This was their first contact with foreign people and getting foreign people in their country. In 2008, there was an economic crisis, and this influenced views towards, especially in Europe, so also in France. In 2014, there were 6 million out of around 65 million people living in France. So that's around 10% of the population. It is migrants have nationality. In 2017, the most recent, there were 100,000 asylum applications in France. As already said, the economic crisis influenced and changed the views towards migrants. French people think that the percentage of migrants of the French population in France should be decreased or stay the same. There's an overview and statistics of different countries and their views towards migrants living in their country. It is interesting to see that 24% of people living in the US, 14% of people living in the migrants too, but only 6% of French people. There are also things the politic in France does. They wanted to reduce the consideration period for asylum application to 6 months. This was seen quite negative. But there are also off permissions that provide assistance to transit states.
So in Germany, the refugee crisis started in 2014 when the amount of applications rapidly increased. And in 2016, there were around 745,000 applications. And in 2017, it has become less, so there were less immigrants. And in Germany, also, the real crisis started when the border to Hungary and Austria was open for the refugees. This was around November 2015, and there were around 7,000 refugees per day that came to Germany. And this was also the beginning that the European countries started to work together. And the problem was that Germany was not ready for such a big amount of refugees, and there were accommodations missing, and the Department for Migration was also overworked.
Even though Germany has one of the highest amounts of immigrants in its population, it is not defined as an immigration country. And in 2015, there was an asylum package that was established by the government that implies that people from safe countries of origin like Albania, Kosovo, and Montenegro do not have a real chance to get asylum. Furthermore, it has for easier and faster deportation of people with no chances to get asylum, and that without announcement, so the people can't disappear. Furthermore, there's also help for easier integration of people with good chances to get asylum, and they are getting non-cash benefits in the first month, and after 3 months they have the possibility to work. Also, communities are supported with 670 euros per month per refugee, and with that money, the communities should use it for accommodation, teachers, and food.
So yeah, I will quickly run you through the asylum process here in Germany, which usually takes around 6 to 12 months, and it starts with obviously starts with the arrival and registration. Refugees will need to report themselves at the Department of Migration, and which is what is like really important in Germany, they will get their temporary ID, which you need to apply for basically anything when you want to live in Germany. So it is one of the first and one of the most important steps, definitely. After that, you will be distributed to the closest reception facility for refugees that is in the state. So you are not able to pick and choose, but it's like all because of logistical reasons that you have to apply in the nearest possible facility. You also have help that is offered by the state in form of an interpreter that will help you guide you through the whole German asylum process. Right, and you will also then get informed about your rights and duties as a refugee. Then the most important step after that is a personal interview where you will be asked about the flight, the individual reasons, your flight route, the situation in your home country, and so on and so forth. Then, what is also really important is the whole working legislation. First of all, in your first 3 months in Germany, you are not allowed to work here at all. Then when you are in your 4th to 5th month here in Germany, you are allowed to apply for jobs and allowed to work if no other European citizen is applying for the job as well. Then after 50 months, you are allowed to apply for every job, just like I would say a regular citizen.
Okay, so Italy has a long history of immigration. So talking about the government from 2014 to 2016, Matteo Renzi was the prime minister and he opened the borders. Then from 2016 to 2018, the role passed to Gentiloni. And then in 2018, the government passed to Lega and Five Stella, and it was promulgated the Salvini decree that reformed asylum and citizenship rights. Italy has been a boarding land for centuries for main reasons: the war, the self-improvement, the religion persecution, and the subsidiary protection. But then in 1949, the Convention of Geneva was issued, and it's a law that proclaims human rights to political refugees. The first organization of reception started in 2015. There are the CPSA or hotspot that are first aid centers. Then there are the so-called CARA or CAS that are reception for asylum centers. And finally, the SPRAR that are protection center for asylum seekers and the refugees.
So we had the second mobility, and the mobility focused on regional social integration concepts of local authorities and integration programs in our schools. And we've had 3 questions basically. So the first question is, how do successful integration concepts in our local communities and in our schools look like? And that and then Gustavo, Moritz, and I will explain a little bit about it. And the second question is, how can we develop our own ideas for successful integration based on the insights we gain? And Moritz is going to explain the answers of this question. And the last question is, how can other stakeholders in other countries benefit from these flagship projects and our ideas? And Gustavo and I are going to present the answers. So starting with the project we visited, we did visit Volkswagen Refugee Aid. It's an integration project, and then we had the SLK, which is the Sprachlernklasse, and the Vielfalt Innerste, and then starting with the Volkswagen.
So the Volkswagen project started in 2015, and they founded an extra group for the coordination of the refugee projects, and then they built a network with other companies and to help with this integration. And then they are focused mainly in this connection between education and job. So first is the education part. So they have this school education and learning, so to learn German, and then they have 150 students get the chance to study for Iron, and then they have this German classes and internships in Hanover. And then to the integration part, they have about 700 internships for refugees. So first they have a language level test, and then the projects for getting workers of VW and refugees in touch. So an example is a 2 months intensive German course is followed by an internship of 2 months for learning the basics of working. After that, they have the option to make a 6 months internship in a local company, and afterwards they can often do an apprenticeship in the same company.
The next project we had the chance to look at was the language learning class in German, the Sprachlernklasse. And this project in schools focus on the integration of refugees in the German school system. And the SLK was created during the main point of the refugee crisis. So during an interview, the school tries to find out which school is in the area fits most for the child, and when they get accepted, they go to the school as soon as possible so they can learn the language faster. They have to participate in math, sport, German, English, and at least German. And the most important is the German class, which takes the biggest part of their time. And they also have to participate in a normal class for 6 hours a week. So they have this contact with the German students. And after they visit the SLK, they have the chance to come into a normal class. So there is always one German student who especially takes care of the student and helps him during the lessons, and makes sure he will integrate in the class. And they often go to foreign to school like foreign students, so they have the same chances, but they will become help through the years to improve their skills, and they can graduate and make a formation or go to university like every other German student. And now Moritz will continue with the last project.
Yeah, and then we also visited Vielfalt Innerste, who was created in 2016 and has about 30 voluntary helpers. They taught in the school buildings, and they offer childcare in many rooms of them, and try to challenging the finance of everything, and work together with many organizations. Yeah, volunteers are playing a big role since the beginning. They offer childcare, and for the children, they offer childcare for the children of the refugees. There are no criteria for being a helper. Everyone can help in a way if he wants. They can reach different levels of education. They can take final exams in order to get regular certificates. But also, here are volunteers active. They drive the students to the place where the exams are taken. Volkswagen is supporting the project. I already said Volkswagen is sponsoring the means of transportation. DRK, das Deutsche Rote Kreuz, is general organization and cares about the childcare. Caritas, international Catholic organization, offers social help, and VHS sent the refugees to language schools and tries to improve their language skills. Yeah. What is important for a good integration, or how can I help the people to integrate? We created 3 important steps. So first, you have to realize what is the actual problem, Then you have to analyze how can I help them, or if I knew someone who can help them. And the important part, or the most important part, is to act. That you don't think about it, and you have to do something. We also talked about with Unterstützerkreis Flüchtlingsunterkünfte Hannover. This is an organization near to our hometown in Germany, who created neighborhood communities. They work volunteers and offer language classes, career orientation, also help organize school material for younger refugees. They realized that language skills are the key for successful integration, because without communication, it's nearly impossible to integrate oneself. They also help to create new neighborhood communities in your near.
So we come to the last question: how can other stakeholders in other countries benefit from these flagship projects and our ideas? So stakeholders in other countries could use the projects we have in Germany as an inspiration, and they could also use the similar ideas to the ones we have to improve their support in different areas. Like, for example, the Volkswagen Refugee Aid that focus on connecting education and job, and like the LPK, which focus on learning the language and helping the students integrate in the school.
So now we will give you insight of Mobility Free, private integration initiative and NGOs in Hanover, Montpellier and Modiga. Throughout the project, we will answer the questions: how do successful private integration initiatives and NGOs work, and in how far can private initiatives provide additional support where local authorities can't?
How can we inspire students to take responsibility and remain committed to integration? How can we publicly promote private initiatives which would be perfect role models for the others? First of all, we have to say what are NGOs? Are non-profit organizations which are independent of the government and trace social or political aims for the other people. They are funded by citizens and are in various fields like humanitarian care, healthcare, public policy, social and human rights, and topics. NGOs give the society the chance to take part in problems. And in general, you can say that their goal is to make the world a better place for the people.
How are they organized? NGOs can be organized as associations, initiatives, or foundations on a local, national, or international level. They have to work transparent and employ a lot of volunteer workers and only a few permanent employees. They are organized private and don't get any aid of the union. NGOs are only fund few private donations, membership dues, and grants.
So why do they need to exist? NGOs are very important for all countries because they engage on a regional level in problems and issues that seem not so important for the politics frequently or aren't noticed enough. But also on an international level, the politics either don't execute enough, help or have the time, or don't occupy themselves enough with the problems and issues which have to get solved. In that case, NGOs plead for other people and try to help and solve problems.
NGOs also often have new ideas to solve several problems, which is very useful for politics as well as for citizens, because NGOs help the people to shape their own opinion. These organizations facilitate as well the interaction between society and government, which weren't existing without NGOs. Now we have two NGOs as an example. The first one is the NGO Singer, which we had an interview with a department in Berlin, and as well we visited them in Montpellier. So the NGO Singer is an organization that was founded 2012 in Paris. Since then, Singer France has successfully established an international network of engaged people, and today they can be found in several countries like France, Germany, Belgium, Italy, Great Britain, Canada, and Switzerland. All these local organizations share common values, but are tailoring their work according to local needs. So their mission is to bring locals and newcomers together to engage. Their mission is to bring locals and newcomers together to engage collaboratively in social, professional, and entrepreneurial projects. And their vision is that Singer strives for an inclusive society that embraces diversity and for an innovative economy that allows everyone, regardless of their background, to realize their professional and their social potential. Now, I want to say something about the Singer department in Berlin. They have projects that focus on the one hand on entrepreneurship and on the other hand on socializing. So they have two main projects in entrepreneurship. The first one is the Singer Business Lab. This is a support program for newcomer entrepreneurs, and they get help in developing and building up their startup. The aim is to unlock the innovative potential that refugees bring with them by enabling their access to the entrepreneurial ecosystem. Then we have the professional mentoring program that offers help and connect locals and newcomers of similar professional background, so they can support each other and build a tandem that works together, and they can get prepared through training and team building. Then we have two projects that are focused on socializing in Berlin. The first one is the Singer Sprachcafé, a language coffee that offers the opportunity to meet new people outside of school or language courses. And it helps to apply the new language skills in relaxed conversation groups. And the next program is the Living Room Events program. It also helps to meet new people, and it's very special because the people in the community can invite locals and newcomers to their living room and offer this living room as a place for newcomers and locals to meet and share their stories in a relaxed environment. Now we want to focus on the project of Singer in Montpellier. They have three projects that are a little bit different to them in Berlin. The first project is the CALM project, and it connects refugees who are looking for accommodation with locals who have a room to host them for a period of 3 to 12 months. Then there's a Singer support program, which helps refugees and local entrepreneurs with social projects in the field of inclusion and living together. And they have the aim to support innovation between newcomers and locals. Then we have a cultural program, which gives refugees the opportunity to take part in several cultural activities, like singing classes, cooking classes, and so on. And there's also the idea of buddies, which means that Singer brings newcomers and locals together who are sharing the same hobbies or passions, and they can socialize and spend time together.
So the next NGO is Médecins Sans Frontières. In English, it's Doctors Without Borders. It was founded in 1971 in Paris by a group of journalists and doctors. It is the biggest independent medical humanitarian organization, and they provide medical assistance to people affected by conflict, epidemics, disasters, or exclusion from healthcare. Up to tens of thousands of health professionals, logistic and administrative staff, and doctors work for them. Today there is a worldwide movement of nearly 65,000 people. Here you can see the map where they work, and it should be more than 70 countries. Their mission is to provide medical humanitarian assistance to save lives, and ease the suffering of people in crisis situations. Their vision is that all people should have access to healthcare regardless of gender, race, religion, creed, of political affiliation, and that people's medical needs outweigh respect for national boundaries.
How can we inspire students to take responsibility and remain committed to integration projects? OS projects where students have the possibility to meet refugees but also get in touch with initiatives that support them, for example, NGO school projects like Erasmus+, etc. How can we publicly promote the private initiatives which could be perfect role for models for others? The NGO country offers the possibility to students and people on helping refugees through English lessons and providing for them. The people that help get certificates and extra credits points on their studies. The NGO also communicates with the universities to have reach. Use social media like Instagram to reach more people.
All right, so the topic of the fourth mobility was the labor market integration and access to vocational training. Therefore, we considered the three different aspects of challenges and chances, challenges for private companies, and political measures in different countries. Considering the challenges and chances in the different countries, we have in Italy, we have we have a very low employment rate, so way too less people are working. There are a lot of language barriers but that isn't the biggest problem. The biggest problem instead are the prejudices, which really affect the integration of refugees in Italy. But there are also some plus sides. For example, there are programs throughout Italy providing food, shelter, healthcare, education, professional training, counseling, legal support, and activities for refugees. There are also refugees could boost the birth rate, which is extremely low, so that's another advantage. The third positive point is that job vacancies are available because of the aging people in Italy could become fulfilled by refugees. In France, there's another situation. According to most French citizens, immigration has caused a blockage of the labor market and as a result has contributed to the rise in unemployment, which has been very high for years. Immigrants in France still find it very difficult to enter the labor market since many professions are prohibited by legal means. There's an almost completely closed part of the labor market to foreigners, such as liberal professions not considered open to the recruitment of immigrants. The main reason for this closure is due to the low level of education held by foreigners present on French territory. In Germany, the problems in Germany are racism and tension towards immigrants and exclusion and precarity that can lead to delinquency when newcomers are not properly tutored and helped. A chance is that the integration of migrants through jobs can help both the employee and the employer. Education and new skills and stability are some aspects that can be enhanced. The next aspect are the challenges for private companies. Private companies are the fundamental economic actors on which the free market is based. Thus, it is in their interest to overcome the challenges that the refugee crisis has created and turn them into opportunities. In Germany, there are several challenges that could arise for private companies. For example, the language barrier is a huge problem for the refugees, but also for the employees that are already working for the company. The refugees that have been hired by a private company could be excluded and socially isolated by their co-workers due to cultural differences. Germany's dedicated and focused immigration and integration policies are only a product of recent developments. Private companies have to be pioneers in hiring refugees because there had not been a similar situation in the Federal Republic of Germany before. Now we go over to France. In France, private companies could face a political backlash from the public because of the situation in the French labor market. There's the feeling that native French citizens lose their jobs to migrants and are forced out of France's competitive job market. But also the process that French immigrants and refugees have to go through to become integrated citizens is criticized as being too far away from reality and unpractical, which leaves immigrants unprepared for functioning efficiently in a French private company, which often has to develop their own company policies, which is waste of valuable man hours. In Italy, companies are hesitant to accept refugees and immigrants into their workforce because they have been vilified by populist politicians, and their status in Italy has become uncertain because of legislation passed by the Salvini government in 2018. Therefore, private companies may prefer Italian citizens to refugees and immigrants because there's high youth and general unemployment, especially in the rural south of Italy. When trying to accept refugees into the workforce, private Italian companies may have problems because Italy's economy is highly diversified and specialized, which may lead to applicants not having the right qualifications. Several political measures had been passed in different countries due to the refugee crisis and the integration into the labor market. In Germany, there are, for example, we choose to represent the legislations by the federal government of Germany to integrate refugees into the labor market. The Recognition Act from 2012, the Integration Act from 2016, the Law on Tolerated Persons in Training and Employment since the 1st of January 2020, and the Welcome Pilots project, which started in the spring of 2016. Recognition Act. The Federal Recognition Act gives skilled workers from abroad the rights to have their professional qualifications checked for equivalence with the German reference profession. The law thus improves the chances for people who have acquired their professional qualifications abroad to work in Germany in their learned profession, and thus enables better labor market integration. The Integration Act. The motto of the Integration Act is promote and demand. The goal is that new funding opportunities and restrictions. There are several innovations that are mentioned in the Integration Act. Asylum, for example. Asylum seekers are allowed to work as temporary workers without waiting period. There are faster and better access to integration courses. Introduction into the German labor market. Possibility of permanent residence status during training. There's a 2-year security after training. If need to leave the country, there's no loophole through training. That's to prevent the fact to remain in Germany during the training, but that is not accounted for if the person is required to leave the country. Therefore, they are effective only for refugees with good prospect of remaining in the country. There are residence assignment decisions of the federal states, prevention of ghettoization, so there won't be several ghettos where the refugees are being concentrated, so there's a better integration into the overall society in Germany. The Law on Tolerated Persons in Training and Employment. The law contains regulations so that well-integrated tolerant persons can obtain a reliable status. With the newly introduced employment toleration, clear criteria are defined for a reliable status of tolerated persons who secure their livelihood themselves through gainful employment and who are well integrated. This law grants foreigners and their spouses or partners a toleration period of 30 months, thus also a secure residence status if the following requirements are met. The law contains regulations so that well-integrated tolerated persons can obtain a reliable status. In addition, there is provision for the uniform application of the educational toleration. Asylum and employment migration remain separate. Now to the Welcome Pilots. The Welcome Pilots are a project that started in the spring of 2016. There are currently 120 welcome pilots in operation nationwide. Since September 28, 2017, large companies have also been able to take advantage of their support. In 2019, the Willkommenslotsen succeeded in filling around 2,300 training positions. In addition, the work of the welcome pilots in 2019 resulted in more than 2,600 internships and entry-level qualification positions as preparation for an apprenticeship. The Federal Ministry of Economics and Technology funds the welcome guides as part of the measures to integrate refugees into work and training, which will be continued under the umbrella of the new Alliance for Initial and Continuing Training. The total annual expenditure for the program is around 7.3 million euros. Of this, 5.1 million euros is financed from federal funds. The remaining 2.2 million euros are provided by the industry. In France, an attempt to integrate and support immigrants was made by LMR Aurélien Taché on the 19th February 2019 when he presented his 72 proposals for an ambitious policy integration of foreigners arriving in France. Measures taken by the Italian government. Asylum seekers are allowed to work in Italy for 60 days from the day of their application. If the corresponding examination procedure has not been completed yet and the delay was not caused by the application, the applicant can enter into a dependent employment relationship after these 2 months.